Hey guys, it's Logan here with Hydra572. Some blades take me entirely too long to get a review ready, for a couple of simple reasons. Now, a blade that I like is going to stay in my pocket for quite a while. Partially just because I like carrying it, partially because I know once I review it, it'll have to go into more of a rotation, I'll have to think about other knives that I want to buy in that range to keep reviews going up, and it just won't be in my pocket as much, and that's a bummer. But also blades that I really like, I want to gather a whole lot of information on before I do a review. Partially just because a fully positive review isn't all that interesting, to me at least, and partially because before I give a product my full recommendation, I want to know that it's a great product. I want to sharpen it a couple of times, carry it for a long time, make sure that the edge doesn't start corroding, all that stuff. I just want to have a lot of information on a blade before I really say that it's one of my favorites. So some blades, they stick around, they're in my pocket 5-6 months before I start writing a review. Another couple of months go by while I'm thinking about how I want to do the review. And before you know it, 9 months have gone by that the knife's been in my possession and I haven't done a review. The Boker Nano is not one of those blades. Now you guys know me, you know that I don't like to do negative reviews, and I generally don't have to. I typically research my products that I want to buy pretty well, and I've just been doing this for a while. I know which blades I'm going to like, and I tend to know which blades I'm not going to like, and I avoid buying blades that I won't like. Just because I don't have the funds to go buy every knife that I think is going to be dumb just so I can rag on it for a while. The Boker Nano is kind of different. Now, there were a couple of reasons that I wanted to buy this blade. You guys know that I don't do comparative reviews, but I picked this thing up just because it came out right after I started talking about how I wanted knives with more coloration options. A whole bunch of cold steels came out with coloration options, and I went, okay, Logan, you gotta step up and put your wallet where your mouth was. So I picked this thing up, and I loved it. I don't do comparative reviews here, but this is a much better version of what this knife was trying to be, in my opinion, outside of collection as far as usage goes. So I thought, okay, you know what, I'm loving one small knife, why don't I get another one? I'm loving the idea of having one really big blade that you can use for defense and a smaller EDC cutter. I loved it. So I thought, okay, I'll start looking around. Well, the Boker Nano is cool. I love the way it looks. I love the green. I don't have a frame lock really in my collection yet, and I could use one for some beginner knife knowledge videos. Plus, I've reviewed the Boker AKs really well, and I haven't really made any videos about any of their other knives that people who can't buy autos could try to own. So the Boker Nano started to make a whole lot of sense, and as a result, I didn't go through my normal process. I didn't look at my friends' channels to see if they had reviews up, anything like that. I just sort of went ahead and bought it. I was making money at the time, so yeah, I just went ahead and got it. And I don't know if you guys saw my first impression of this, and I don't know if you've seen my first impression of other blades, but I tend to be really nice in first impressions. Partially just because it's hard for me to be mean on the spot. My first impressions of this blade were unkind. For a couple of reasons, you should go check that video out just to put this video in reference. So, once I figured out that I wasn't going to like the blade, I carried it a couple more times, I got an edge holding test together real quick, did some cardboard cutting, and I basically prepared a review. I wanted it out of the way, so I could go back to carrying other blades that I liked more for testing. And so that's what I'm going to do. I have the review now. I hate to do a negative review, but it's going to give me a lot to talk about, and I think it's going to be really interesting. So without too much ragging, without further ado, let's get started with the review. Intended usage, EDC? Well, if you're reading the sales article on Blade HQ, if you're reading Boker's description of this blade, you would think so. They say that it's one of the benchmarks for a small knife that offers utility and comfort and expert ergonomics and all this stuff. Everybody seems really happy about it. I'm here to tell you that if you're buying this knife for EDC usage, you're probably wrong. Now, collection? This is a production model of the David Curtis Nano. Exact same dimensions, pretty similar design. He offers his in liner lock as well as frame lock, and of course with a bunch of different blade finishes, handle materials, all that sort of stuff. But if you're working on a budget, you love that blade and you would like to get one, or if you've already got one, you want to complete a collection of all of the different options that Blade HQ offers on this thing, that would be cool too. And Blade HQ does have a number of cool options. I just went for the classic one. They have this coloration in slip joint, they have orange handles, they have black handles with a stonewash blade, they've got sort of a zombie thing where it's a black coated blade with 1 or 2 serrations up top, and just a bunch of different stuff. And if you wanted to collect all those and it was only for the purpose of collection, I guess that would be pretty cool. Moving on to the pricing. $40 on eBay, $41 plus shipping and handling on Blade HQ. So a decently cheap knife. Now the tip is just bad. I'm moving into blade profile, and the blade profile for this design of knife, everything's just too small. Too small to be useful, I mean. The tip, to really get the tip engaged in a cut, you basically have to incline the knife to that angle before the tip will bite. Now, even a Wharncliffe, which has a really non-pronounced tip, basically you just have to invert the heel a little bit and the tip is engaged in the cut. The Boker Nano, because of the way it's upswept and because of the way it's ground, you have to really invert the thing to get the tip involved in a cut, and that sucks. The belly, you actually get to use quite a bit just because of how much is taken out of the handle here. You get to sort of bear down, and you get to use actually what turns out to be something like 60% of your blade when you're doing your cutting. It is a very upswept blade, but to get that belly, we're kind of sacrificing our tip, and that sucks. And still, it's only 60% on what turns out to be a pretty bulbous blade, so, you know, make that call on your own. But it doesn't really hold up as an EDC cutter, so I guess the belly doesn't matter too much. The steel is 440C, and the edge holding test that I did with this blade was really interesting. The way that I tend to do edge holding tests is I'll have cardboard around to cut and dull the edge with, and I'll have paper around, and I cut the paper every time I do a fairly significant amount of cardboard cutting, and I just pay attention to how the paper cuts, whether it's a clean, smooth cut and all that, and I wait until it's not smooth enough to cut paper at all anymore. And typically that transition from smooth enough to cut paper kind of toothily to not cutting paper at all happens really quickly. With this blade, it didn't really go that way. It sort of got toothier and toothier and toothier to the point that I was still cutting paper, but I was engaging a whole lot more of the blade in the cut, and I was cutting less paper per swipe, but it was still cutting for a ridiculously long time, actually. I'm not a metallurgy expert, and I won't claim to be, but I think that might have something to do with 440C having some larger carbide size, maybe those carbides continuing to be removed, producing more of a saw-like effect, whereas something like an HCR13, or even a more expensive steel like an S30V, just gets to the point where the fine particles near the front of the edge have gone away, and now you're dealing with too broad of a surface to really cut much. Again, that's just my estimation. Sharpening, it was mid-level. I would say that it is in between something like an AUS-8 and an S30V, so not particularly easy, but like I said, it held a long time, so I'm not too surprised by that. I actually slapped this thing on the wicked edge after I tested it for sharpness and edge retention. I'll try to get it to focus, and the edge that I have on there right now is just beautiful, just hair-popping. I'm working on new methods with the wicked edge, and they're working really well. The grind, I'm not going to lie, is really cool looking. I'll bring it up, hopefully you guys can see. The hollow ground portion here is very slightly hollow ground, and it has sort of like a stonewash looking finish to it, though the abrasions are definitely too small to be a stonewash. And the satin polish up here is really cool. You can see the grind lines. They're going this way, and I think that contrast looks awesome, actually. I won't lie, I'm not going to take away the things that this blade does do really well, and one of those is look nice. So the grind looks nice. That's about all it does. With this grind, I found in the cardboard tests that when it sliced, it was slicing really well, but when it bunched, it was kind of terrible. It botched the cut, and I had to start over in a whole new spot. Deployment sucks. The knife is too small to be deployed easily. It comes up out of your pocket like this. You only have a little bit to grip. You have to re-grip once, twice, and then you can flip it open with your thumb. It is just really slow. It feels lethargic, and that sucks. You can do a flick opening, but again, you have to reposition your hand a bunch and then really go for it, and I'm going to do it, and it's going to go off camera. But yeah, you can barely do that, and it's an uncomfortable grip when you're doing it. So deployment sucks. I didn't even really see if I could sneak a zip tie in there to do a zip tie type modification to get a wave, because I was carrying it outside my left pocket mostly, and I just wasn't that interested in it. I was eager to get a review done. So deployment sucks. The frame lock, like I said, this is my first frame lock. The Gerber paraframe doesn't count. The frame lock, it took a little while to work in. It was really sticky for the first 100 or so deployments. After that, it settled in, I would say sub 50% lockup, and it's fine. It doesn't add anything to the experience. It's just like a liner lock where the other side isn't there. The other handle scale, I mean. Yeah, whatever. I'm impartial. I've complained about them before, and like I said, I don't see what it's adding. Play, it started off with no play, which I thought was impressive, but as the lock wore in, as I said, it got less sticky. It also developed some play, side to side and front to back. Not a whole lot, definitely not a worry, like normal. There's a little bit of play that I noticed because I'm a snob, but not enough to really worry me. So, yeah, there's that. It doesn't have to do with the pivot tightness. I've tightened it and loosened it, and no, there's going to be play pretty much no matter what, unless you're gargantuanly strong, can deploy it when it's really tight. Much stronger than me anyway. The handle is open flow through. As you can see, we got a couple of barrel spacers there, and looking nice with that contrast on the back. Boker is weird about their materials. Often what they say when they're selling a blade is not the same thing as they say in their description on their website. So Blade HQ has this handle scale material listed as Zytel, which I believe is correct, but on their website, Boker says that it's FRN. It doesn't look like FRN to me, and it doesn't feel like FRN, but yeah, that's actually really unprofessional, and Boker should get that under control. Liners, none. Obviously, that's put in there for back locks and liner locks, and this is a frame lock, so no liners. Ergos are bad, and this is going to be my main section of bitching. Your pinky's forced off the grip, which isn't a bad thing. 3-finger knife grips can be okay. You guys know I like larger grips with more real estate. I have medium-sized hands. I'm not a huge-handed guy, and I just simply cannot engage this grip with more than 3 fingers. My pinky's going to be off all the time. And for you to be advertising this knife as having outstanding ergonomics, and then it's a 3-finger grip, that you didn't say that sucks. That's lying, actually, is what that is. It's not terribly uncomfortable. As I said in the cardboard test, I didn't notice it as being a pain in the ass. I would hazard a guess that you're going to fatigue slower doing the same amount of cutting if you got to use both, or rather all 4 of your lower fingers, not including your thumb. So yeah, the ergos are bad. This choil here, I don't know if you guys can see there was a small semicircular choil there. That's stupid. That needs to be larger so that we can actually use it. This area here should be occluded, and we should be able to grip all the way up here. That would be helpful. It's uncomfortable trying to sneak your finger in there into that really small semicircle that you guys made. I'm not sure why that's there. But you know what they did to fix that problem for you? To fix you feeling like to actually grip the knife with 4 fingers that you were going to have to do something like this? They just didn't sharpen this first centimeter of blade. They sort of put a bevel there and then didn't sharpen it. So you can actually grip the knife with all 4 fingers with your finger a centimeter worth on the blade. You can grip it and not get cut. Isn't that awesome? Great thinking, Boker. No, it's stupid. It's really stupid. First off, it means that the knife cuts terribly from the heel, which is when you're doing slicing like this, that's where you're going to be starting your cuts. So it starts your cut terribly. You tear something before you cut it. And second off, no, it's not okay to put your finger on the blade. That's stupid. And the fact that you guys designed the knife poorly to have bad ergonomics does not excuse that. You grind the blade and make sure that my hand doesn't go on the blade. I don't want to be safe here and not be safe here. I shouldn't even have to explain why this is a bad idea, and I actually find it really infuriating that a company's been making knives since my dad was a kid. I have to explain why it's a bad idea to include grabbing the blade as part of you fixing your bad ergonomics. That's really dumb. The jimping is bad. There's not enough of it. It should have gone all the way to that grind there, and then it might have been okay, and it needs to be grippier. It's not grippy enough, and there's not enough of it. If you're going to do a really crappy job of putting jimping on, I would almost prefer that you just didn't do it, because I know that it raises cost, and when it's like this, it's pretty useless. It doesn't help the ergonomics at all. So yeah, the handle, not particularly uncomfortable, the handle material. I was looking at it thinking, yeah, that might be bad. People in the custom market seem to like it, but it might be bad. It's actually not, if only because you're not really engaging it all that much with your hand. I don't think it offers a shitload of traction either, but hey, there you go. The clip, that's David Curtis's water jet cut clip, and I suppose it looks really nice. Because you're only using 2 screws instead of 3, it loosens up really quickly. I only carried mine for a week, and I had to tighten it up. It actually acts as an over-travel stop. So, as you see, if you're pushing your lock bar there, the clip stops it, which is cool. Instead of having to do a roto block or something like that to stop you from hyperextending the lock bar, they just use the clip. I didn't flip it around to tip down. to check if it still worked that way, but I assume that it would. And yeah, so that's sort of cool, shows some ingenuity, though I'm sure that that was David Curtis, not the people over at Boker. The presentation was real good. Like I said, I won't take away from this blade what it does well. And what it does well is look good. The handle material looks great, in my opinion. Like I said, the grinds I think are cool. Even the lock side is really cool. Looking down the lock, you see the two different sides there, and I actually think that all looks alright. My aesthetic gripes against frame locks, not really coming into play here. It looks fine. Like I said, if you wanted to just put together a shadow box with all the different kinds of these, plus one cool actual David Curtis made one in the middle, go for it. Nobody's allowed to tell you that you're not supposed to do that. It's what you like aesthetically. The quality, you know, the lock was sticky to start with, and the edge was lame. Yeah, it sucked. You should send out edges that cut stuff. Other Bokers that I've gotten were better. I don't think I need to explain that any further. And I'll actually list the unsharpened heel as a quality problem. Maybe that's just you guys having bad quality control instead of actually being stupid enough to think you could get people to grip the knife like that. That is not outstanding ergonomics, by the way. When you're advertising outstanding ergonomics, that does not get to include finger in the blade instead of a full choil the way that it should be. They could have easily just taken this out a little bit further, occluded more of the blade. You would have actually been able to grip up in here. You would have been in a choil instead of an unsharpened portion of the blade, and it would have been fine. A lot of what I have negative to say about this blade would have been put to rest if they had just redesigned it from David Curtis's design a little bit, because this is the way that David Curtis's knife is. I looked on his website, exact same dimensions. Literally precisely the same dimensions. And that sucks. The value, 440C for $40, yeah, basically just it doesn't match the resilience at all, which I still think is the benchmark in this price range. Being an awesome blade, very well constructed, but you know, it's an okay steel, and for $40 I won't really complain. The construction was fine despite the quality complaints that I had. It hasn't fallen apart on me yet, so I guess it's not a complete disappointment. Competition for collection, I guess none. That's the thing about collection. It's based on aesthetics, and nobody's allowed to tell you that a knife doesn't look good. If you think it looks good, that's up to you. Like I said, I could see a cool project coming out of building a whole collection out of these things with one Curtis in the middle, and that would be fine. For EDC, we've got, like I said, the Tough Light. I actually think the handle looks a little bit better on the Boker. So you could do the Tough Light, a great little blade in this size range, available in green if you're buying this because you like the green. Available in a couple other colors if you're wanting to buy one of the other colorations of Boker. Also, we have the Spyderco Ambitious, the Ladybug, the Man Bug, stuff like that. The Ladybug does not have a clip, so if the clip is important to you, maybe look at the Ambitious. And there are all sorts of smaller offerings in this price range. Those are just the ones that I could think that were pretty well tested. So pass or fail, well, it's been a long time since I've failed a blade, but fail for everything other than collection. It's not a defensive blade, as is obvious by its sub 2-inch blade. It's not an EDC cutter, as is shown by it being a terrible EDC cutter, because it takes forever to get out of your pocket, and deployment sucks, and it's not comfortable to use, so, and a non-useful blade profile. So it's not an EDC cutter. I guess if you want to collect it, I can't tell you not to. So yeah, fail. And honestly, one of the more depressing things is this isn't just a fail for Boker. Boker will recover. They offer a whole bunch of models of different blades. They're kind of too big. If you're going to be a knife reviewer, you kind of have to review some of their blades. They're going to make some stuff that you like. This is a fail for Curtis knives. I mean that Curtis knives, your logo, there it is, right there. There's your logo. To me, that means that you were proud enough of this knife to put your name on it. And that's a problem for me. Eventually, I'm going to be moving into the point where I want to review some higher-end blades and maybe some customs. I might be buying some of these blades that people like Jim Skelton are buying, even people like Vance. I might be buying some of those more expensive blades. And you having your blades priced around $200, that would have been a great entry point for me to get into the custom knife market. And now I'm never going to buy one. And I'm never going to buy one because you put your name on a crappy product. And that sucks. It really does. You know, maybe Boker did that to you, but you could have and should have backed out of the project if this blade does not represent the quality level that you're turning out over at Curtis Knives. That really sucks, and I mean that because I know what it's like to be wanting to make your living doing something you love, and your name means everything. If you can't have a little bit of pride and put your name on things that matter, put your name on things that are good, I know I won't be buying from you. And that sucks. It really does. That's a fail that it actually hurts me to say that. Like I said, I know what it's like from trying to make my own knives, which is hard as hell, and from doing this stuff here on YouTube. Wanting to do what you care about for a living, you know, I don't know. It's a fail on a much larger level than usual, actually. It's a really bad knife, and you put your name on it, and that sucks. Yeah, we'll finish up with specs. Overall, it is 4 3/4 inches. It doesn't seem that big. Handle length, 2.875 inches. Blade length, 1.875 inches in the sub-2 range. Blade thickness, 1.2. Weight, 2.9 ounces. Actually feels a little bit heavier than that. It is a pretty heavy blade, just due to all of the... I assume this is steel. They don't tell you what material it is. Making up the lock side. I assume it's steel. It shouldn't be aluminum. But that information is not available, as I've said. Boker tends to be kind of sketchy with telling you what materials they're using. So that's awesome and unprofessional. Yeah, like I said, I don't like to do negative reviews. This is the second time that I've filmed this thing. I wanted it to be shorter than it is, and I almost even wanted it to not be as negative as it was. But the knife sucks. Obviously, you shouldn't buy the knife. Like I said, unless you're collecting, then I don't have any right to tell you what knife sucks as far as things that you like looking at. But is an EDC cutter no? Yeah, overall, just sort of disappointing. And like I said, I didn't mean to get into that heavy thing with Curtis knives, but it's all very true. What you put your name on matters. It's a lot sadder than I wanted it to be, actually. Disappointed the knife. Wish it was better. I really think it could have been cooler. And a couple of small things that appear to be just mimicking the way that the actual Curtis is really brought it down. So, avoid the Boker Nano, unless you're just buying it for its aesthetics. Other options in the price range, in the size range, out of the size range, blow it out of the water. That's just the way it is. Sorry, I hate being depressing, but I do need to be honest. So, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more of the same.